Hello, welcome back to Read and Reread. My name is Angelia, and today I'm doing the September wrap-up. September was a great month for reading, and I'm going to wrap up the full-length books that I read, novels and some collections of short stories that I read in their entirety. I also did a Shorty September project where I read 30 different short stories by 30 different authors in 30 days, and I'll leave the list of the authors that I read in the description box, but I'm not going to go back over all of those in this video because it would go on and on and on and on. But I did talk about the stories along the way in the Friday Reads videos, and I will be talking about the last batch of them in this upcoming Friday. So before I get into the list of books, I want to just take a moment to remark upon the passing of Hilary Mantel, which was the big news story in the world of literature this week. And that actually happened on the day that I was filming my last video. And so that was very sad news, and her contribution to literature is pretty remarkable. I have not actually read the series, the trilogy about Cromwell, but I know that it is beloved by many readers, and I've always been a little daunted by the prospect of trying to read Wolf Hall and the other ones, but you know, I may try them sometime in the future. All right, so on to the books. The first book that I read this month was O. William by Elizabeth Strout, and I was a little bit late. I've been wanting to read this for a number of months, and I finally read it right before the fourth book in the Lucy Barton quartet has come out, which is Lucy by the Sea. So, but I got a hold of O. William at the library, and I have read the previous ones. I think I've really read all the books by Elizabeth Strout. I'm kind of a fan. But I read O. William, and I really, really liked it. I was surprised that it made the shortlist for the Booker Prize because it's the kind of book that could easily be overlooked because it's very, her style, and I don't even know why I like her writing so much because the spare style that she uses is not what I usually gravitate to. The only two authors I can really think of that write in that manner that I really love are her and Raymond Carver. Most of the time I like something wordier, more descriptive, but there's something just like quietly devastating about her writing that I really love. So I really did enjoy O. William quite a lot. And I know a lot has been said about this book, so I won't go into great detail, but it's basically the story of Lucy, who has been recently widowed. She's about 60, and she goes on a trip with her ex-husband, who has recently been left by his much younger wife, and he finds out some things about his family history that are surprising and disturbing, and she goes along with him platonically on a trip to investigate this further because she knows more about this mother-in-law and this than anybody else, and the two of them have they have a trust and a friendship that goes, you know, way back. So it's a very interesting relationship, and apparently this is furthered in the next book, Lucy by the Sea. I took a look at that book in the bookstore yesterday. I really am eager to read it. Like, I actually started reading it standing there in the bookstore, and then I realized it's kind of tacky to go much further because I was gotten about 10 pages in and I wasn't planning to buy it at the moment. But in the next book, apparently it coincides with the start of the pandemic and William asking Lucy to go with him out of New York City. So I will eventually read it, and I will talk about it when I do. All right, then I have this one. I read The Trees by Percival Everett. This is I have two books that are my favorites of the month. This is my co-favorite. And this one was like nothing else that I have read. It covered themes and subjects that I have read about many times, themes of racism, our troubled history, especially in the South, and police brutality, in different aspects of American racial inequality and the lack of justice. But he covers it in really unexpected ways with an unexpected plot. And I am happy that this is on the short list, and this is my favorite of the ones that I have read for the prize. So the trees. So basically, I've talked about it at length, but you have to come. It's a mystery. It's a horror story. It's a social justice story. It's a lot of different stories, and it's very unusual. And I'm looking forward to reading Telephone, which I recently bought. 'Cause now I want to read more Percival Everett. I'm going to read Telephone, and the other one that looks really interesting to me is Erasure. I was looking at that. It was a really beat up copy at a secondhand bookstore the other day, so I didn't buy it, but it looks really good. So I loved the trees, and I'm looking forward to more Percival Everett, and I am team trees for him to win the prize. I don't know if that will happen. Then the next one I read was from the library, and that was The Swimmers by Julie Otsuka. And that book was so sad and depressing. It was good, but that was the story of a group of people that swim at a community pool until some cracks form in the pool. And the cracks are kind of allegorical. And then the second half of the book is about Alice, one of the swimmers who has a progressing form of dementia. And the pool was kind of like her last tether to reality, where she knew her place and was comfortable and could follow the procedures and enjoyed herself and felt comfortable. And after that, her condition deteriorates, and it's presented from the point of view of her daughter. And it closely mirrors the experience of Julie Otsuka and her mother, who had an unusual form of dementia. It was not Alzheimer's. It was a different, more pernicious sort of dementia that basically just deteriorates your brain. So it's extremely sad and difficult in light of being a person who is watching aging parents and different problems that are beginning to occur. So I found that one a little bit hard to read, but it was very beautifully written. Then I read another book that I've already sent back to the library, which was Mercy Street by Jennifer Haigh. And this was a really good book. Again, not, a cheery picker-upper kind of book, because it was about an abortion clinic and the protesters there and a woman who worked there as a counselor. But it did bring together really different points of view and Jennifer Haigh has a knack for this, of taking somebody that you wouldn't have expected and really showing what things are like from that person's point of view. But so in this book, she does get into the mind of a person who is a couple of people that are protesters, and you get into some really nasty headspace with one of them. And then, a more relatable headspace with Claudia, the counselor that works at the center. So that was really interesting, and but again, kind of unsettling material. Then I read Night of the Living Res, which is my co-favorite, along with Trees, for my personal book of the month. I loved these connected stories by Morgan Talty about David, a Penobscot Indian member of that community, and in Maine. So this was about a place I've never been and a group of people I don't know a lot about, but I felt fully immersed with David and his family and friends in these stories, and the way that they move back and forth in time. And I was thinking about the character. I really love the character Fellis in this book, his friend that is just a masterpiece of poor judgment all through the book, but somehow is still a very appealing character. And I decided that the person he reminds me of is Wooly from the Lincoln Highway, who's also just it's just one mess up after another, but somehow he's very appealing, but yet he's kind of doomed. And so I that's who he reminded me of. Then the next book that I did read was Strong Poison by Dorothy Sayers. I talked about this one last week. It's a old-timey murder mystery from 1930, and I read it because I wanted to read some Dorothy Sayers and to read my way up to Gaudy Night. And I mean, this is not something that's going to stick with me for all time. It was breezy. It was fine. It was a lot. There were some very funny moments, but there was also a couple of disturbing elements that I talked about last week with the sort of something that would, in today's, if it was written today, it would be uncomfortable encounters where Peter Wimsey is flirting and making overtures to Harriet Vane while she's in prison, as he informs her that he's going to help her win her case. So she's kind of a captive to his attentions, and that rubbed me wrong, and some anti-Semitic jokes. So there was some dated material in here, but there was also some funny scenes, especially the scenes about the fake seances that Miss Clemson stages to try to gather information and solve the case. You know, it's supposed to be Lord Peter Wimsey Mysteries, and he did virtually nothing. It was the women that he hired to go collect the intel that did all the work. And that's one of the funniest parts of the book, is that he actually has this pool of women, and it's posed as like an employment agency. And so what he does when he wants to investigate a case is he has women sent out to become like secretaries and things in the places where he's wanting to spy, so they can just be eyes and ears in these places and gather information. So they're the more entertaining people in the story, and he doesn't really do much of anything except hang around and exchange witty repartee with his butler. All right, the next book that I read was Fairy Tale by Stephen King. This was definitely the hefty doorstopper of the month. And this was a really fun book. I'm going to talk about it more in Friday Reads. But it was a fast-paced tale, and it is indeed a fairy tale. It's a Stephen King book. It's not a horror book, although there's some violence and some gory scenes. And I will talk about it more on Friday, but it was really fun. It is not, even though it's thick, it moves fast, and it is, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I had a good time reading it. It was a good book to read after having read some more serious or dark topics. It was kind of fun to read a straight up kind of adventure story, good versus evil kind of book. So if you like, and it is a fantasy. So if you like fantasy light, like you don't read a ton of fantasy like me, I think you may enjoy it, and I'll talk more about it in Friday Reads, as I said. And then last but not least, I am currently reading If I Survive You by Jonathan Escofferey. I did read the first story for my Shorty September, but I have the book, and it was not shortlisted, but longlisted for the National Book Award. So I came back around to it, and I'm going to continue reading it this week. I've read a couple more stories so far. So I don't really have a wrap-up thought to share about it yet, except that they are well written, and it is the story of Trelawney, who was born to Jamaican immigrant parents. His parents and his brother Delano or Delano, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, were all born in Jamaica, and Trelawney's the only one who was born in the U.S., and it really affects his experience compared to the experience of his parents and his brother, who has memories of his former home and then moving to the States. And it moves back and forth in time, as did Night of the Living Rez, but a different kind of experience with a different American family. So because I've read them in close proximity, I feel a certain comparison, but I don't really think that's fair, because it's a totally different kind of thing, except that it's a group of interrelated stories about one family. So after I have read some more of this, probably if I think I'll be done by Friday, and it will be I'll talk about it more in Friday reads. But so far so good, although I am still disappointed that Night of the Living Res did not make that long list, because so far I like this, but I loved that. So we shall see. All right, so that's it for September. I will be doing an October TBR video sometime over the next week. I'm kind of I'm percolating on that right now. So I'd love to know what you thought about these books, if you have read them, or what your big winners for September were in your reading. And so please leave me a comment. Let me know what you're doing, thinking, reading. And please like and subscribe if you enjoyed my video. And I hope to hear from you, and I will see you again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.